Welcome to This Week in Local, a Localogy podcast featuring lively conversations about the local digital ecosystem, hosted by Localogy analysts Mike Boland and Charles Laughlin.
Hello and welcome to This Week in Local. I'm Charles Laughlin, senior analyst at Localogy. Today I'm joined by Emily Steele. She's the co-founder and CEO of Hummingbirds. Emily, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Great. I know what a hummingbird is. I have them outside my window occasionally. But tell us what Hummingbirds is.
Yeah, so we're a SaaS-enabled marketplace that helps place-based brands, think like grocery stores, brick and mortar retail, companies find and work with hyperlocal content creators and people, essentially, to drive awareness and sales. So kind of a spin on the influencer space, hyperlocal, everyday people.
Okay. So when I think influencer, I think Instagram, somebody in Dubai, holding a camera with an incredible backdrop, selling luxury goods. So tell us why this is influencers, but it's different. Kind of explain what the concept of local influencers and why you think it might have legs going forward.
Yeah. So the concept of Hummingbirds came about because, it was 2018 when I had this moment, this aha moment where I was like, so many decisions I'm making in everyday life are happening because of what I'm watching my friends post about on social. Like whether I'm visiting a new cocktail bar, trying out new experiences with my family at like a fun pumpkin patch. Like this is all local decision making, which is the majority of what I do with my time in my own community of Des Moines. So I'm making decisions this way. I'm watching my peers do it. And I'm like, look, this influencer space is blowing up, but influencers do not drive local behavior. Like Kim Kardashian talking about a hyperlocal brand. It doesn't really matter if you have a global following. And so this has just been...
I've never heard her mention where she gets croissants. Yeah.
Right? It's just like, that's not how she makes her money and frankly never will be. So how do you give local everyday people an opportunity to experience and amplify the brands in their own backyard, big or small? And I just had a hunch that this could really be something big and meaningful for brands.
Okay, so you just had this insight that influencers drive purchase behavior. Why can't that be a thing locally? I'm putting words in your mouth. Stop me at any time. Why that can't be a thing locally in the same way that influencers are a thing in a non-local sort of brand-driven fashion. How did you put that into place? How do you implement influencer marketing at a local level?
Yeah. So, initially it was like finding, 20 to 30 of my closest friends. I was like, hey, you want to hype some products and let's see if it actually works. Let's see if us talking about things actually moves the needle for these small businesses in our own community. And, small businesses were super excited about it. And so my curiosity, you start like, I had this massive spreadsheet of all these people's names and their Instagram handles. And I was like, this is obnoxious. Let me hire a developer, build out some initial software and see if we can put some official campaigns together. And so for me, it's always been kind of like one step at a time and saying okay, brands, try this software out, see what people want to try and experience and see what type of content can really move the needle for you. So for me, it was just getting the right people into the platform, getting brands to try out different offerings and tell me what was exciting about seeing local people kind of at scale talk about them. So instead of one voice of influence, you're having 20, 30, 40, 50 people talk about you at the exact same time. That's really powerful in a localized environment.
Okay, so an influencer, again, sort of at the global level, they can make a lot of money. They have to influence it nonstop. Yeah. What is the opportunity for a local influencer? How would you compare it to our general traditional sense of influencers?
Yeah, so influencers are, they're out there to make money and it's an incredible opportunity for them to do that. And I think that you can really only monetize really significantly as an influencer by seeking out those national or global brands and building a really large following nationally or globally. So the opportunities are really different when you're someone who needs to make money, a significant, to pay yourself and pay your bills. So when I think about kind of the local person, the local everyday, we can do quote unquote influencer because someone who might be an influencer in their own city might have just 1,200 followers on Instagram, but people look towards them for recommendations. And that's a lot of people in a local environment. So I think a local person who wants to create content and make an impact is excited about content creation as a hobby. versus I'm going to make a living doing this.
I hate to use the term side hustle, but is this a side hustle?
So for me, no. For hummingbirds,
No,
they
not
get perks.
for you. I didn't think
No, I
so.
know.
I meant
I know.
for Jane, who got you to go to that cocktail bar or whatever it is.
Yeah. So our hummingbirds, they get perks. So it's never, because we're not an influencer platform, if you will. It's all about like, here's a gift card to go to this grocery store and pick up this hot sauce. Here's 2 tickets to the local theater. Like, bring a friend, talk about it. And so because these are everyday people driving local behavior, they're totally cool to get like the $20, $30 gift card.
Are they going to get sick of that and start wanting money at some point? I mean, how do you think about how this evolves?
Yeah, I mean, we're really thinking about the persona of a hummingbird. So for us, we're looking for people who want to support small businesses in their backyard. They're the people who are always wearing their city shirt, like support local, St. Louis, Chicago, whatever it is. They just want to see their community thrive. And so they're not in it to monetize. So I would say the majority of our hummingbirds, like, this is an altruism play. This is a way of giving back. And it's really strange because the ecosystem is full of people who are influencers who want to make a bunch of money. And this is not the pool of people, a community we're creating.
Okay, so this kind of has a Yelp vibe, like a. I mean, tell me how I'm wrong when I say that.
So Yelp is a platform that you leave reviews on that platform. When you have your own following of friends, and you're talking to your friends about your recommendation, you're not going to avoid on Yelp where a bunch of strangers will review what your review on a business is. This is your own network. So, I mean, people have hit follow on a friend because they want to hear from them. So when you're sharing a recommendation, you already have that trust and that permission to kind of share your recommendations. So it's very, very different, I think.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. That was an impulsive comment, but I might make a few more. Now, when I think local influencer versus Kim Kardashian, I think you may actually know this person, versus because your local social media friends may also be people you know personally. How much is that true, and how does that make this different if that's the case?
Yeah, I think there's some people I think about some of the people you follow on Instagram might be more aspirational. So you're like, I'm never going to meet this person in XYZ community, but I love how she talks about travel and what they do with their family to travel, etc.
Sure.
I understand that consuming that type of content is very different than me following hundreds of my friends that I've met from sand volleyball to preschool, picking up kids. So when I think about that, I can physically walk to my grocery store and bump into a real person who saw my post and be like, hey, I just saw you posted about this cheese. What was it over? Tell me about that. And so it's true bump into real people, follow up in their DMs. They will get back to you. Real conversational tone.
Okay. So I am a brand.
Yeah.
And I, want to brand a local marketing is a thing. It's, there's platforms all over the place to facilitate that. What is the pitch to a brand to give this a shot?
Yeah. So for brands that are trying to drive that offline local behavior, they get access to our software, and we're very much curating communities of hummingbirds in specific cities. So if you're in specific communities like St. Louis or Indianapolis, and you want to move products off a shelf, you want to get more people to your movie theater, whatever it is, you would come to us and purchase credits, and those credits get you access to a hummingbird and their social media post about you, where you can seamlessly create campaigns, where you can work with the people who already opt into wanting to work with you and really drive that people-powered marketing channel, people as your distribution channel. What we found is the majority of the customers that work with us are doing a lot of traditional ad spend from billboards, print, TV, and they're trying to reach a millennial consumer who has a majority of the buying power today. And women make majority of purchasing decisions in general, and they do not know how to reach this woman. I'm like, you go to her friends. You go to her friends, and her friends are hummingbirds, and they're going to talk to each other about your brand experience. So that I would say is high level the pitch. Depends on the business and the vertical too.
Yeah. What is the general reaction to that? And you said small businesses got excited about this quickly.
Yeah.
May have more questions about that, but how do brands react? Are they skeptical? Are they oh boy? Or are they this is super exciting? Or give us, I mean, realistically, what barriers have you had to overcome in that pitch?
You know, there's an element of newness to some brands that have been around for a long time that are like, okay, like
That's not
this
always a good
is,
thing, right? Yeah.
yeah, there's an educational element, but I've been doing a lot of work in the last few years to build kind of that, like, this is what kind of community-led growth and people-powered marketing means. And so if you've been following that for a while, you start to open the door of like, oh yeah, all this other stuff is kind of noise and interruptive. I can actually build a real connection with my customer through content. So I would say it's either immediately receptive or like, this is really interesting, like build out a proposal that maps it out. But I mean, our growth is exceptional. And like we have really large enterprise clients, and we have kind of your small established businesses that have been around 30, 40 years. So the appetite's really strong. And I think it's because we're in a time where it's hard to track attribution. Like influencer marketing is blowing up, but brands, like it doesn't work at a local level unless you're working with local people. And I think to reach today's consumers, you just have to be really cognizant that consumers like trust friends and family over any other form of advertising. So going through a real person is really, it's incredible.
You said attribution. Could you talk about how attribution is, how you handle measuring it, tracking it, reporting it, et cetera?
Yeah.
And how does it compare to other media?
Totally. So since we're not in the influencer space, we're not like, click this promo code.
Okay, I keep saying that, I know, and you keep saying you're not.
That's okay. No, it's seriously like
okay.
there are a lot of brands that like you are following the click-throughs, you're following through purchase. We are about offline localized behavior. So I have a great example of one of our CPG clients was trying to track, he isolated his hot sauce brand. They turned off all of our advertising and just did Hummingbirds in Milwaukee and Omaha. And what he wanted to prove was that products were moving off the shelves because Hummingbirds were talking about it. So for him, it was all about looking at the back end of the data that his company uses to see product movement off the shelves. So he was like, if you get a 1x lift in this product movement off the shelves, like happy day. And we got him a 14x lift in Milwaukee and 4x lift in Omaha. So for us, the proof is in the pudding, right? But it was through his data that he was looking at overall sales, and it got him into more stores because he was moving product off shelves. So, some of our customers are like, give me that granular data. But some are like, hey, a billboard isn't going to become my customer, but a hummingbird, if I get 20 in my shop and I can acquire 10 of them and retain them, and my lifetime value is X dollars, that becomes really kind of interesting to them. So it's fascinating. Some brands are like, reach impressions. I want to understand that. Others are like, I want a new customer. And others are like, show me the sales data.
So could you give us a sense of the breakdown of your customer base versus like the local cheese shop versus Unilever? I'm not saying you have, as an example.
Not yet. Yes. So we kind of started in a small business space. I would say we're really having a lot of success with multi-location brands. So you think about like a waxing franchise or like a med spa franchise that's in 10 different cities. We can turn on Hummingbirds in all of the cities we're in. So some of those multi-location, we have a lot of success in those, brands that have been around for a long time, whether it's like an oil change company that has been around for 20 plus years and has a real marketing budget. But I'd say it's that it feels like a small business. It feels like something people can get excited to try out, like our Hummingbirds. So very consumer oriented brands.
Okay. So what are the categories that seem to, you mentioned like waxing and oil changes. So I'm assuming you're just crushing it in those two categories. They have very little in common, but other than they are local, right? So
Right.
Kind of walk us through where this seems to work best.
It works really well for service-based companies that need to see repetition for customers. So you get an oil change, I create your content. Well, for the one I went to and did content as a Hummingbird, they invited me. I was like, thank you. I don't always get pulled into them anymore. I'm a repeat customer. I loved the service. And so they're like, holy cow, the retention's incredible. So service is really strong. I would say the CPG product, like building that kind of behavior of getting into a shop is becoming a really big category. And then some of that just experiential, getting people into like a performing arts show or the local theater. Those have become really big. And we're just starting to touch in the tourism space too. People again are like, how do I get people into my city and talking about it? Like real people.
Okay. So you recently we a little reveal to the audience. We talked about fundraising before we got on the air.
We did.
I want to ask you about it, but in a slightly different angle. You raised $1 million. I forgot when recently, right? And I know that, it was a big deal for your business. But what I'm curious about, and you can talk about who's investing in you and how it was like, what it's like to raise money, but what business do they want you to build? What are your investors telling you about what you should be building versus maybe what you came in thinking you were building? Is there a difference between the two?
No, there's no discrepancy, which is great because we have a really incredible lead investor. I mean, you get to choose to a degree, right, who you want to work with.
Sure.
But for us, like raising our pre-seed round last December was all about like we had product market fit. I had tested this. I had paying customers. I had hundreds of hummingbirds. I had done the work from a bootstrap level to say like, I know that turning this into a SaaS enabled platform could really take off if we build kind of the outbound sales team and open up more cities. So, so much of a pre-seed raise is like proving out concepts and creating a lot of assumptions and proving those out. And so that's what we really mapped out with our investors is like, here's what we're trying to prove out. Can we open 15 cities? How quickly, how efficiently can we do it? Can we bring on thousands of hummingbirds? How quickly can we hit our goals? Can we hit revenue goals? And we're pacing towards all of them. So for us, like that sets you up then for your next race too, of course. Like, did you hit those milestones, et cetera?
What are your most important KPIs?
For us, it's sales, hummingbird count, and then locations.
Okay. And how are you doing on all of those?
Really well.
I expected that answer. I'm looking for more detail. So let's start with cities. Where were you expecting to be rolled out to by now, and where are you?
So we're opening 15 cities this year. We just opened Indianapolis today, so we're at 14 as of recording this. So we're mid-October, so we'll open one more. TBD on which one. We let our customers pull us into some of the cities when they want to expand their contracts. But next year we'll be in 30 more cities. So 45 mid-sized cities is the plan for us. So
you said mid-sized. So I was going to ask, what is the sort of profile of a great hummingbird city? Is it Des Moines and Indianapolis? Those are, I wouldn't say I don't know the populations of each, but they're probably, I don't know if they're similar size, but those are mid-sized cities. Okay.
Yeah.
So what else about a city makes it a good hummingbird city?
Yeah, we're looking for mid-sized cities in the sense of like, from what we mean by that is there's 300,000 to 1 million employable population in those cities. So actually Des Moines is a little bit smaller.
Employable is an interesting qualifier. Okay.
I know.
What does employable mean? Just at a certain age?
Like they're like employable people. Yeah, right? Like in whatever category that specifically means, I know.
I mean, someone taught them how to show up on time. I don't.
Are you 14? How old are you? Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of like what we looked at. And for us, we wanted the ability, I think there's something really different about like San Francisco and Los Angeles. Like you're not necessarily bumping into people in the community and building these like tight-knit communities of friends. And so for us, it's all about this. We're serving underserved cities. Everyone thinks to launch like an SMB MarTech company, you need to launch in the sexiest cities. And we're like, no one's paying attention to these verticals of businesses.
So Milwaukee and Omaha and so on and so forth. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. And talk about hummingbird recruitment. How does that work and how has that evolved? And how do you think it will evolve as you scale up to 45? And I assume beyond that, I don't know how many American cities meet the hummingbird criteria, but I'm guessing it's more than 45.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for us, it's all about, so we open a city, we recruit the first 100 manually over Instagram direct messages. And we're very intentional about those first 100 we invite because we know they're like early adopters. They're creating a ton of content already. So we know they'll love our platform. We invite them in, ask them to invite their friends. We spin up to hundreds, like early, like 200, 300. We turn on sales. And then the growth kind of self-sustains in a lot of ways because the more campaigns that are happening, the more social content that's out there, there's a bit of virality like in the nature of the business. We don't need millions of users to make this product work. So we're really focused on kind of slow and steady as it because we're a marketplace, so you need to kind of pace the like business side with the supply side. So we find this nice cadence as we grow each city.
So once a hummingbird is recruited, they're just creating the content for you in the normal flow of their content that they've been creating all along, right? So you want an influencer with an existing cadence of content, and this is just integrated into that. Is that right?
Yeah, they're already social media enthusiasts. The fact that they can create more and have cool experiences is like sprinkles, you know?
As a hummingbird, do they have an obligation to create a certain amount of content or, et cetera? Could you talk about that?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, they essentially opt into different campaigns. And if they're selected, they are, the expectation is that they complete the campaign. So whether it's like visiting a shop and completing a post by X date, like that's
and for that, they get a free gift basket or something, or some cheese.
Yeah. You're making me hungry.
Okay, free cocktail. How about
that? You're making me thirsty.
Okay.
Oh man.
But it's usually non-monetary compensation.
Yeah,
and it's sort of
exactly.
it is supplied by the client essentially. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So they do an influencer campaign for a shop. They get something from the shop.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of part of the experience. Yeah, it's not like you do this and you get this. It's kind of like, hey, if we want you to like go to the grocery store and pick up meat and talk about it, like we probably better provide you with the meat to grill.
Better get a steak out of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of get the perk as part of the campaign, not as like a reward or compensation, if that kind of makes sense.
I'm trying to get at the motivation or the incentive. So you're sort of positioning that as not an afterthought, but a bonus versus a true compensation. Is that talk about? And do you think that's going to hold, or going forward, is this going to have to be more of you're getting paid to influence kind of a deal? And I know you kind of are pushing away against the influencer label a little bit, but it's sort of working that way, right? And so how do you think that's going to evolve?
So when I think about what motivates a hummingbird, like I've done tons of conversations, tons of surveys, like they want to discover brands in their backyard, period. So if they're getting a free perk to go visit a new pizza restaurant, or they are seeing a new show that they would never have heard about unless they logged into our platform, it's just like a bonus, oh my gosh, I get to do this thing. I get to try something with my best friend. And then I post about it. I would have done it anyway. Like I love posting content. So there really is no overlap in the influencer space in the sense that it is just a different value exchange because it's not transactional. It's very much about supporting a brand in your own backyard. It's just a different ethos of a person, and it's not good or bad, right? It's just so different.
You're finding people who just generally do this anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but that makes me wonder about the scalability.
There are millions of, I mean, we don't need, like, for us to be at full, like a really exciting revenue opportunity, we only need 150,000 hummingbirds. So for me,
sorry, how many do you have now?
150,000. So
you need 150,000. How many do you have now?
Okay. And right now, I think we're pacing at close to 4K, and we're like 9 months in. Yeah.
Now, when do you think you'll get to 150,000?
By that time, that would be great if there's like an exit or acquisition. It's like kind of looking towards that first $100 million opportunity for us to be like, this is what needs to make sense for how many businesses are on the platform, what we see in engagement with hummingbirds, and kind of that matchmaking magic that happens. So it's not intimidating to think we only need 3,000 hummingbirds per city. That's nothing.
Okay, I'm not going to do the math right now, but
it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, 40 cities by 3. Yeah, you're getting close to that number. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you mentioned exit. We touched on the fact that you raised $1 million. Was that a seed round? Or
pre-seed round. Yep.
I was going to say it was a pre-seed seed. So 2 questions then, I guess. What do you think your timeline is for first raising another round and second having an exit?
Well, Well, I hope we close our next round soon. We're in like some
Soon is
exciting.
always an interesting answer, but yeah.
Yeah.
Do you need to close one soon? I mean, money runs out.
Money does run out. We're in a really good place right now, but I would say like we are raising because we have clients that are pulling us into cities across the country, and like no one's focused on geographic content creators like we are. And so like we're pretty bullish, my co-founder and I, and on what we're building, and the traction we have is remarkable. And so, we went out to fundraise, and like we have a lot of people leaning in. We're kind of early in the process. So this conversation, we'll see like in the next week or two, will be completely different, I'm sure. But like that will hopefully close before end of year, like, fingers crossed, all the things. But that gets us to 45 cities. And that's what we build the opportunity, that first exciting opportunity on.
And at 45 cities, you think you're at scale?
For the locations.
I know that's an elusive term. I understand that.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But there's a lot of excitement around it. And I think like brands are ready for this shift in what marketing can be.
Are you offering a relief from something else that they're sick of doing? Like paying, Instagram influencers who are genuine money makers? I mean, are you a alternative to them that they find enticing? I mean, so what am I getting wrong? You say brands are ready for this. Usually brands are ready for something when they're sick of something else, right?
Yes. They're not sick of influencers because they're not working with influencers, because influencers don't drive local. So what they're sick of is spending a ton of money on TV and radio, and they're not reaching consumers who are spending money on Spotify to avoid ads, right? So they're ready to reach a new generation of consumers and do not know how to do it. And what they're doing is broken, and it's not. And
so it's about the consumer who's sick of consuming ads and will pay to avoid it. How do you reach them? People who will pay to avoid advertising,
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right. Not a bad spot to end it on. We wish you luck with the raise. We hope that happens at the timeline that you expect it to happen. And we're excited to learn more. One last question, and I always am curious about this when somebody's building a new space, is do you welcome a competitor? Would a competitor signal something to the market that's positive for you, even though nobody likes competitors? But have you thought that one through?
Yeah, I mean, people are competing in like the nano influencer space, but you're still putting influencer on there. So I think to build a community-based brand is really hard. And it's something like I'm a natural community builder. And so I've seen a couple try. If you don't have community as the foundation of this type of brand, I don't think you'll get it. So I would love to see someone attempt. It's really effing hard. So
someone attempting and failing while you're succeeding.
Like I don't want to wish that upon someone, but it's, I'd be curious to see how other people would try it.
Okay. All right. We're going to have to end it there. This has been a lot of fun.
Fair.
So thanks everyone for listening. This has been This Week in Local. Stay tuned every week for more episodes. I'm Charles Laughlin. My co-host is Mike Boland. Thanks to today's guest, Emily Steele of Hummingbirds. You can find this show on all major podcast networks, and you can learn more at Localogy.com. If you'd like to be a guest or sponsor this podcast, write to us at podcast@Localogy.com. Please subscribe, like, and review this podcast. Your engagement really helps others find us. Our producer is Dara Sweat. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Localogy's This Week in Local with Mike Boland and Charles Laughlin. Be sure to subscribe for more.